Hey guys, welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on Yanasa TV. What a weekend, right? A second assassination attempt on President Trump. I don't know what the world is coming to, but I am very concerned about what's going to happen in this country in November. Because no matter what happens, neither side's going to be happy with the outcome. Today's video is going to be as brief as I can make it. We have a tropical storm rolling in. This has been actually a fairly light year for tropical storms. We usually get hit multiple times in a year with hurricanes, storms. We just live in that part of the country where it's a normal thing. And they were predicting that we'd have a ton of storms this year due to a boiling hot Atlantic, and all of the conditions were right with a La Nina forming in the Pacific. And then we've only had 7 storms as compared to 2020 when we had about 20 storms by this time of the year. And I'll tell you something, I've read some funny articles on this, and a lot of these people who have come out and posted these articles kind of making fun of the global warming forecast for the hurricane season, they missed one of the key points that I think adds a little bit of irony to the entire situation. Okay, so I'm going to tell you why there's been less hurricanes this year, and take it for what it is. It doesn't quite fit the narrative. I think they're still trying to figure out how to make it fit the narrative before they put it out there. But what has happened is the Atlantic suddenly cooled at the beginning of the summertime. It cooled down. They're calling it the Atlantic La Nina. And because of that colder water, what you actually need for these tropical storms and hurricanes is you need warmer water and cooler air, because it's the temperature differential that creates the cyclone effect. So anyway, what has actually happened is the Atlantic cooled. And what I think is very interesting about this phenomenon is that the Pacific is cooling at the same time. So we're experiencing global warming, folks, in real time. The Atlantic is cooling at a faster rate than we've ever seen it, and the Pacific is also cooling. Anyway, on to today's video. Today's video is on numerous outbreaks across our country in foodborne illnesses. The FDA is currently investigating up to 6 outbreaks across our country. And with 4 out of those 6, they've continued to see an increase of patients. Back at the beginning of the year, I posted a video talking about foodborne illnesses, specifically when it comes to meat, when it comes to animal products. There's something to be said about rising meat prices across the board, and some of the things that we continue to see going on right now. And I'm not just talking about plant fires and things like that. I mean, there are serious situations that are happening almost every day. For example, just this past week, there was a nationwide recall on pork and ham from a very large producer, Fratelli Beretta. Did you guys hear about that one? So they had this massive recall over salmonella scare. Frequently, you're going to start hearing of foodborne illnesses coming from animal products. And they're going to try and scare the living daylights out of you from eating. I was actually going to talk about some of the headlines that I've seen coming off. I mentioned several food recalls in my last video. I said that you're going to start seeing more headlines creating fear tactics around animal agriculture products, food particularly, foodborne illnesses. That you need to be scared of these things. And these are scare tactics that we've seen going way back. And when I get into raw milk a little bit more, you're going to understand the history of this and how impactful it actually has been on people. But the point is, number one, to steer people away from animal-based products. They're bad for the environment, right? That I felt like this year we were going to start seeing more and more situations where fear was going to be put into us of foodborne illnesses coming from animals. And whether or not that is organic or whether or not it's put out there in fear, who knows? Now, there has been some other things. I think cinnamon, for example, we've seen this a lot with cinnamon, but cinnamon has a recall. Over 12 brands have been recalled for having too much lead in them. You're probably wondering why there's lead in them. Well, lead is a food additive. Like, it helps increase the flavor of cinnamon, right? You would be surprised at the poisonous chemicals that they put into our food supply, which are perfectly okay with the FDA until they get past a certain level, and then all of a sudden that becomes harmful. So when you have a shortage of natural ingredients, what they've done is they've added lead to help boost the flavor of those ingredients so that when you put cinnamon on your food, you could actually taste it. But right now, as we go into fall, the time of year when everybody likes cinnamon, it's on a recall with 12 brands because of way too much lead. So next time you eat that Cinnabon, think about all the lead poisoning you're giving yourself. Anyway, in that video, I was specifically addressing, these foodborne illnesses coming from animal products. And I don't think it's any secret that we've seen that throughout this year. In fact, I did an updated video not too long ago at the beginning of the summertime where I actually went through a list of the recalls. The FDA recalls are substantially higher than the USDA recalls this year. And I went through that list to help give you guys an idea of where we were at that point of the year and what to expect as we went into the end of the year. Today I wanted to talk about food recalls. So far in 2024, we've experienced 138 recalls. We are on track for another record year. 2023 was a record year, was about 321 total recalls. I think we're gonna beat that this year by maybe as much as 10% at the rate we're currently going. To give you a comparison of overall recalls, the recall index this year for all goods is up about 8%. FDA recalls up 27.6%. I'm gonna let some of you decide from some of the information that I put into this video what you think is going on with these massive recalls. Was there a significant random increase in recalls? Yes, there was. So in 2021, total recalls, well, I have the numbers here, about 140. And if you look back, 2020 was 67, 2019, 137, 2018, 141, 2017, 145. So around 100 to 140 recalls a year seemed to be the standard up until the end of 2021. And then when we hit 2022, something happened between 2021 and 2022, where all of a sudden our recalls jumped up to 290. And then in 2023, they jumped up to 321. And now in 2024, it's looking like we're gonna beat another record year. So we've had 3 record-beating years from food recalls over the last 3 years. And you can look at it numerous different ways. You can say recalls doubled post-pandemic. Maybe it had something to do with the pandemic. Maybe they just hired more agents. We know that that's been a thing for this administration, is to empower all of our agencies. One of the things that I wanted to look at, though, in evaluating total recalls was how much of this is food illness related recalls. Because I think, the way that recalls happen with the USDA is you have recalls for lack of inspection, like the 20,000 pounds of meat that came out of Africa that nobody should have bought in the first place. And then we have people who get sick from eating food. And when anybody gets sick in this country from a foodborne illness, it only takes about 2 people getting sick before they consider it an outbreak and they start their investigations. And then there's no telling what they're going to find in these investigations. We know that they found 1 case of E. coli and tied it to an Amish farmer and shut his entire business down. Since that video, as it turns out, we have seen one of the largest meat recalls ever. It was 7 million pounds of deli meat. Most of you know about this from Boar's Head Meat Company. On the 26th of July, Boar's Head Meat had recalled their ready-to-eat liverwurst products because they had salmonella in them. I'm sorry, not salmonella, listeria. Anyway, so they recalled those products on July 26th. Just 4 days later, they turned around and recalled 7 million pounds of deli products across the board, across the Boar's Head Meats board. Now, if you have gone to the grocery store since this recall happened, the end of July, going into August, you've probably noticed when you go to the deli section that they've been packing these bags that are like, maybe just have a few slices of deli meat in them, and then they'll put like a $3 or $4, price tag on it. People are going in there picking this stuff up. Half the time they don't realize how light that bag is. I have, because we have to pick up like 5 or 6 of them to feed our family. And we try not to do deli meat that much because we don't like the whole meat glue thing. It's kind of weird. But I mean, the point is that they have created this shortage of deli meat across the board. At least here in the Southeast, we're closer to the Virginia plant where this happened. But it has created a shortage because when you go to grocery stores, Boar's Head has been the main brand. So 7 million pounds of meat products have been pulled off the shelves. I want you to think about the wasted lives of animals with a recall of this magnitude. But the recall was necessary because there were actually people who died from listeria. So this was a very big case. I don't know all the details of what happened with it. It was tragic, but it's been tragic in more ways than one because they have decided since that time to just completely shut down their Jarrett, Virginia plant, which had several violations before the recall even started. So I have a feeling that there was a lot going on there. But they've shut down the plant, so people have lost jobs over this, and it's a very terrible situation. But at the same time, when it comes to the consumer, we've faced shortages, at least in the Southeast, of deli meat since that recall, and there's no end to that in sight because there's nobody else that's going to be stepping in saying, oh, here's some more deli meat. We've basically been pushed to the deli meat on the other store shelves, you know, the stuff that I'm talking about. The Oscar Mayer brands, right? Point is, some of these recalls can have lasting impacts on the marketplace, and it's a terrible loss of animal life, terrible loss of human life, terrible, I mean, stuff isn't good. Okay, so what's going on right now? This week, the Food and Drug Administration confirmed reports from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that an outbreak of salmonella infection has been traced to eggs. Milo's Poultry Farms LLC has recalled all of its eggs sold under its brand name, Tony's Fresh Market brand. This is actually going to impact, I think, consumers more than they think, because remember when we saw eggs go to all-time highs a couple of years ago? They've surpassed that. Eggs are actually up higher than they were back then. Same with beef, and I'm going to do a completely different video on beef and poultry because we are about to see an incredible beef shortage. So anyway, as of September 11th, there were 65 confirmed patients because of this outbreak in the eggs. Laboratory testing has found that the eggs are contaminated with the outbreak strain of salmonella. Of the 63 patients with information available, 24 have required hospitalizations. No deaths from Milo eggs. In other outbreak news, so this is case number 2, the case count for an outbreak of E. coli O157H7 linked to a not yet identified food has increased from 26 to 27. The FDA first posted the outbreak on August 28th. The agency has not reported the ages, the patients, or where they live. So we're just out of luck on knowing anything about that one. Now, a lot of this is coming off of Food and Safety News, and I will say Food and Safety News is a site that I read, but I don't necessarily always agree with them. When these guys don't have anything to talk about, the first thing they do is they go after raw milk, and they will publish article after article after article telling you how bad raw milk is for you. But these guys are pretty much in the FDA's pocket, and so when there are outbreaks and news of this sort, this is where you can get the information from. Now, what's causing all of this? I don't know. I've explained to you guys in the past that I thought this was going to happen this year. Moving on to case number 3, the patient count in an outbreak of listeria infections has increased from 3 to 4. The FDA, again, has not confirmed the source of the outbreak. They have begun traceback on some food samples, but haven't said anything about the food, the patients, where they live. Again, it's still in the early stages. Outbreak 4, are we on 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, outbreak 4. FDA has not found a source for an outbreak of Cyclospora parasite. So this first started happening back on August 7th. As of September 11th, so a little over a month later, there are 54 confirmed patients, up 50 from a week ago. So wow, that's grown substantially. The FDA has not reported the patients' ages or where they live. The agency has initiated traceback testing on site inspections, but has not reported what food is being traced and which site is being inspected. Number 5, in an outbreak of the same parasite, The FDA initiated on-site inspections, but the agency has not reported which facility is being inspected. Sometimes I wonder, because they've got 2 of those cases, if they could be the same. So we will say that's like 4.5, 5 minus and a half, whatever. At number 6, an outbreak of salmonella. The patient count had gone up 1 compared to a week ago, with 90 people now infected with the outbreak strain. The FDA has initiated traceback and sample testing, but has not reported on what food is being traced and tested. The agency has also begun on-site inspections, but not reported what facility is being inspected. So, folks, the point is that as we head into the end of the year, with 6 active investigations going on outbreaks across the country, we could expect to see more recalls, and the size of those recalls and how they impact our prices at the grocery stores may vary. And like I said, I'll be putting out another video this week. I think it's important that people understand what's actually happening in the cattle market, because it's not just the US, it is now Canada and Brazil that we're seeing shortages in, and that's going to have an impact on your grocery prices as well. So as much as we'd like to say that prices are going down and we can control prices, you can't control prices, by the way, folks. If you put price controls in place, you will create massive shortages. Part of the greatness of having open markets where prices can fluctuate with market activity, you know, it's in the best interest of corporations, profitability-wise, to try and sell as much as possible to make as much of a profit margin as possible. But when they have a shortage of supplies, the prices have to go up, because it's part of managing the supplies on the marketplace. So when we talk about price controls, those are very dangerous things, but there are real world things that are happening right now that are impacting our food supply. And a lot of it is impacting our supply of animal products, animal proteins, milk, eggs, you name it. So as we head into the future, it's going to be interesting to see how high these prices fluctuate, and how affordable some of these alternative sources become, like lab grown and bug-based. There's a place in there's a county in California, or the state is encouraging people to eat an invasive species of blackberry that's been taken over the state. So there's alternatives out there, but how do you get the public to move towards those alternatives? And I'm not saying any of this is done intentionally. I don't think anybody could say that, but I'm just saying that this is something that I thought was going to happen at the beginning of the year. We're seeing it happen in real time, and it's definitely impacting the prices we pay at the stores. And whether or not, you know, the Boar's Head recall, whether or not these recalls were necessary on the scale that they went, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming if they recalled 7 million pounds of deli meat, there must have been a good reason for it. The only cases that I heard about had come from a couple of their product lines, so it seems a little overzealous to me, but you know, I guess if you're going to proceed on the side of caution, there you have it. But pay attention, folks, to what's happening in our food supply, because it's going to have real impacts in the near future. Real quick reminder, guys, Yanasa TV is sponsored by Yanasa Trading Co. Yanasa Trading Co. is a trading company that my wife and I have been working on building for the past year to help offset some of the effects of ad censorship on our channel. We have a lot of Defend the Right to Farm gear, the Defend the Right to Farm gear, t-shirts, Defend the Right to Farm ranch. All of that helps support not only this channel, but also our nonprofit. We are currently running a pre-sale on leather patch hats with the Defend the Right to Farm logo on them. You can get those, pre-order them now, because a lot of times we have to place that order for these hats, and when we get them in, we don't have a lot of extras. So be sure to pre-order your Defend the Right to Farm leather patch hat. So shop at Yanasa Trading Co. and support the channel.